What if every single moment you have ever lived, every thought, every secret, every lifetime your soul has ever walked through was recorded somewhere? Not by God, not by fate, but by a cosmic library so vast, so ancient, that the ones who control this reality have spent centuries making sure you never find the door. Today we open that door. If this is the kind of truth you have been searching for, subscribe now, because what comes next goes even deeper. There is a place that exists beyond time, beyond space, beyond the reach of anything this world has ever built or destroyed. It has no walls made of stone. It has no shelves made of wood. It has no librarians walking quietly between the rows. And yet, every single thing that has ever happened, every word ever spoken in secret, every tear ever cried in the dark, every decision ever made at the crossroads of a human life is stored there, perfectly, completely, forever. The ancient Sanskrit word for it is Akasha. It means sky. It means ether. It means the invisible substance that fills all of space and holds within it the memory of everything that has ever existed. The Akashic Records are not a metaphor. They are not a poetic invention of the spiritual community. They are something that mystics, seers, and initiates across dozens of civilizations have independently described, accessed, and warned about for thousands of years. And the question you need to ask yourself right now is this: if such a library exists, who built it? And more importantly, who controls it? The first recorded references to something resembling the Akashic Records appear in the ancient Vedic traditions of India, dating back further than most modern historians are comfortable acknowledging. The Vedic seers, known as rishis, described a field of consciousness that permeated all of creation. They called it the Akasha. They taught that within this field, every action, every thought, every karmic imprint left by every soul was written and preserved across all of time, not as punishment, not as reward, but as record. The ancient Egyptians spoke of something similar. In their cosmology, the god Thoth was the divine scribe, the keeper of all cosmic knowledge. He recorded the deeds of every soul in what they called the Hall of Two Truths. When a soul died, it was brought before 42 divine judges. Its heart was weighed against the feather of Mat, the feather of truth and cosmic order, and Thoth wrote down the verdict. What the Egyptians were describing was not a fairy tale. It was their understanding of an actual system, a recording system, a celestial archive that tracked every soul across every lifetime. The Hebraic tradition speaks of the Book of Life, a divine ledger in which the names and deeds of every soul are inscribed. The Christian Book of Revelation refers to books being opened at the end of time, books that contain the record of everything every human being has ever done. The Islamic tradition describes the Law Mahfuz, the preserved tablet, upon which all of existence and all of its events have been written since before creation began. These are not coincidences. These are echoes. They are fragments of the same ancient knowledge, surfacing across different cultures and different centuries, all pointing toward the same reality. There is a record. There has always been a record, and someone or something is keeping it. In the late 19th century, a Russian-born mystic named Helena Petrovna Blavatsky brought the concept of the Akashic Records into the Western, esoteric tradition through her monumental work, The Secret Doctrine. She described the Akasha as the primary substance of the universe, the first and most fundamental element from which all other elements emerge. She taught that within this substance, the entire history of the cosmos was encoded. Every event, every being, every civilization that had ever risen and fallen on this planet and on others. But it was the American mystic and clairvoyant Edgar Cayce who brought the Akashic Records into the modern consciousness in a way that could not be ignored. Between the years 1901 and 1945, Cayce conducted over 14,000 documented readings while in a deep trance state. In these readings, he claimed to be accessing what he called the Akashic Records directly. He described the past lives of individuals with extraordinary detail. He diagnosed physical illnesses by accessing records of what the soul had experienced across multiple lifetimes. He described ancient civilizations, most notably Atlantis, with a consistency and specificity that his contemporaries found impossible to explain away. What Cayce described was not a passive library. It was a living, dynamic, interactive field. He said that the records did not simply contain the past. They contained every possible future as well, every potential timeline branching out from every decision ever made. And he said that those who could access this field could not only read the history of a soul, but could also understand the trajectory that soul was currently moving along and what it would take to alter that trajectory. Now here is where things become deeply uncomfortable. If the Akashic Records contain the complete history of every soul, including where it has been, what it has done, and what it is capable of becoming, then this information is extraordinarily powerful. The soul that remembers its own record, its own accumulated wisdom across lifetimes, becomes something the system of control cannot easily manage. A soul that knows what it is, where it came from, and what it is moving toward is a soul that cannot be recycled without its own consent. It is a soul that sees through the amnesia that has been deliberately installed at birth. The Gnostic texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945 describe a process by which the soul, upon entering a new body, is made to forget its previous existence. The Archons, those cosmic administrators that the Gnostics warned about, are described as the enforcers of this forgetting. They are not simply passive guardians. They are active suppressors of memory. They have a vested interest in making sure the soul does not remember, because a soul that remembers is a soul that can choose differently, and a soul that chooses differently stops feeding the system. The Akashic Records, in this Gnostic framework, represent the ultimate threat to archonic control. Because if you could access your own record, if you could remember not just this lifetime, but the dozens or hundreds of lifetimes that came before it, the patterns would become visible. You would see the loops you keep repeating. You would recognize the traps you keep walking into. You would understand that the same fears, the same attachments, the same unresolved wounds keep pulling you back into incarnation after incarnation, not because you need to learn lessons, but because the system needs you to keep returning. This is why the knowledge of the Akashic Records has never been placed in the public square. It has never been taught in schools or sanctioned by governments or endorsed by religious institutions. It has lived in the margins, in the mystery schools, in the whispered teachings passed from initiate to initiate behind closed doors. Because the people who understand how power works on this planet understand that a human being who has access to the full record of their soul's journey is a human being who is no longer easily controlled. Rudolf Steiner, the Austrian philosopher and founder of anthroposophy, spent decades attempting to describe the Akashic Records in rational, systematic terms. He called it the Akashic Chronicle. He claimed that trained clairvoyants could access this chronicle and read from it the way a scholar reads from a physical archive. He described reading the records of ancient civilizations that had left no physical trace. He described the movements of spiritual beings across epochs of time, and he taught that the ability to access this field was not a supernatural gift reserved for a chosen few. It was a latent capacity of human consciousness that had been deliberately suppressed through centuries of materialist conditioning. What Steiner was pointing toward is something the Gnostics understood 2,000 years ago. The divine spark within the human being is not just a fragment of light trapped in matter. It is also a receiver. It is a living antenna capable of tuning into the field of the Akasha and drawing up from it the memories, the knowledge, and the accumulated wisdom of the soul's entire journey through time. But to do that, the receiver has to be cleared. The noise has to be removed. The static that the Archons maintain through fear and distraction and endless stimulation has to be silenced long enough for the signal to come through. This is what meditation was originally designed to do. not to relax the body, not to reduce stress, but to clear the receiver, to create the conditions under which the soul could begin to remember itself, to open a channel of access to the living record of everything it has ever been and everything it has ever known. The mystics who accessed the Akashic Records consistently reported the same experience. A sense of infinite depth, a recognition that the information they were receiving did not come from their own minds, but was being drawn from something vastly larger than any individual consciousness. A feeling of profound familiarity, as if they were not learning something new, but remembering something ancient, and a clarity about their own soul's purpose and trajectory that dissolved the confusion and the fear that had previously defined their experience of being alive. This is what has been taken from you, not by accident, not by the neutral passage of time, but deliberately, systematically, because the ones who have understood the mechanics of this reality for a very long time have known that a humanity with access to its own Akashic memory is a humanity that cannot be governed, cannot be harvested, and cannot be recycled. The door to the library has always been there. It has never been locked. It has simply been hidden behind so many layers of noise, distraction, dogma, and manufactured fear that most souls never even think to look for it. But the records themselves cannot be destroyed. They cannot be edited. They cannot be suppressed, because they exist in a dimension that the Demiurge and his administrators do not have the power to reach. And that is the most important thing the ancient mystics wanted you to know. The truth of what you are, the full record of every lifetime your soul has ever lived, is waiting for you. Not in a church, not in a government building, not in any institution that has ever claimed authority over your spiritual life, but in the silent field that underlies all of reality, in the Akasha itself, in the invisible library that was recording your existence long before this world was built around you.